Have you ever looked out across the sea and just wondered how wildly vast it is? I was on holiday in the Isle of Wight once with my wife, and we stood on a cliff face and just looked out across what is essentially the Atlantic Ocean. So you're on an island pointing out towards America, and on the other side of that body of water, a huge body of water that is insurmountable to a lowly human like me without the advancements of society and culture and technology. Beyond that water was America.
Oh, say can you see?
At that point, I'd never been, but I always wanted to. I was a bit of an Americanophile in my youth. I took American literature at university. Most of my favorite authors are American and talk about Americana and the American dream and the changes and attitudes towards that in modern life. But that body of water might be vast, but us as people, as a culture, as a society, we have developed the means to get past that water, right? We had boats, still do, but we don't really use them to go on commercial journeys, right? And we have planes too now.
Fly now? Let's fly now!
We can travel through the skies over huge, insurmountable odds to get to other places, to meet other people who come from somewhere very, very far away. But we often have a lot in common, because the human condition is, well, it's the human condition. As the crow flies, about 3,500 miles between London and New York. And London isn't on the coast, it's actually up the estuary of the Thames, so that's not directly from coast to coast, but it gives you an idea of how far apart my humble little island of the United Kingdoms is from the great North American peninsula. And you might be wondering why I'm talking about oceans and travel and how, even in spite of 3,500 miles, the amount of things that you have in common between a Londoner and a New York occupant are huge. Wizards of the Coast, that's right, this is still a Magic video. Wizards of the Coast announced their Magiccon schedule for 2025 this week on Monday. The 2025 Magiccons will return with a February one in Chicago, a June one in Las Vegas, and a September one in Atlanta. All of these are in North America, and specifically in the US of A. So that's a frustration, right? That's what this video is about. It's about the disappointment of people like myself seeing that actually we're being kind of forgotten about again for the coolest part of the Magic Pie each year. I reached out to Wizards of the Coast and they actually responded too. So I'm going to talk about all of that in this video. What I feel, what they said, and how I feel about the response too. In the meantime, everything on this channel is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com. So if you are looking to pick up a single product or single product in North America, use the link in the description below, the code Kenobi at checkout to get 5% off your order, and it helps to support the show. You can buy singles and single product there. And if you're not from North America, I'm actually in the process of sorting out a European sponsor as well to help support people over this side of the pond. It's just taking a little bit longer than I had anticipated. I thought that was worth mentioning considering we're talking about the global village that is mankind and the Magic community. There's a sweet little announcement video they put out, which is essentially Fibble Thip on a road trip, and it mentions Growther and New Capenna and how far apart they are all from one another. But in essence, he's driving to 3 particular places. That's Vegas, Chicago, and Atlanta, the 3 places that the Magiccons will take place this year. Now, for those of you that haven't been following, what is a Magiccon? Well, it's the huge, massive official main convention that Wizards of the Coast puts on to celebrate all things Magic. They have cosplay contests, main stages with they had a celebrity chaos draft at Barcelona. They have the Pro Tour on side. The main stage has panels, quiz shows, and all sorts of good, interesting stuff that elevates it beyond just being somewhere you can buy and play with Magic. They are literally massive. There was a huge Emrakul sort of installation with a huge tentacle that you could be in. I'll put the picture on screen now of me wrapped up in it. Might have been Ulamog actually, because it's Modern Horizons 3 at Barcelona. Sorry, at Amsterdam. I keep getting them mixed up. Amsterdam was this year, Barcelona was last year. Both of them were incredible. Although if we're picking a city to go back to, I'd rather not go back to Barcelona. I have a bad history with it. I was mugged in Barcelona once. So yeah, Barcelona's not my favorite city. Go as far as to say it's one of my least favorite cities in the world. So Amsterdam, yes. Barcelona, no. Pretty much any other city in Europe. Prague, anyone? London. There was teething problems with the early Magiccons. People on Reddit were very upset with how one of the early Chicagos went, for example. But on the whole, the feedback from Amsterdam was that they absolutely smashed it out of the park. The vast majority of people that went were very, very happy with space to play, queue sizes, general options and things to do. And because they're so big, they have a lot of extra stuff there. They get more vendors to go, more guests and appearances from people like myself and other members of the community that you might want to bump into, play Magic with, or get things signed by. It really has a big draw to it. Artists too, not just content creators, but artists signing your stuff. And like I said, the Pro Tour is there too. The Pro Tour is attached to the Magiccon brand now as a thing on the side, not as a thing you can go to and get involved with if you attend a Magiccon through buying a pass, but that the Pro Tour is happening on side to create a huge Magic tentpole moment in the Magic calendar. They are wicked. If you haven't been to one, I'm really sorry, and I hope you can get to one in the future. I recommend them heavily. I really like them. So when they tweeted out and announced the Magiccons, they had this really cryptic line: "We can't wait to gather with you all there and in Europe in the future." Now, some of you are probably thinking, it makes financial sense that the Magiccons are going to show up in the Americas, the North America, should I say, more on that in a second, because that's where the majority of the audience is. That's where it makes monetary sense. Well, firstly, monetary sense, or what makes them the most money, isn't always the path that I want companies to take, so just fuck that out of the window. I can't stand that argument. When a company does something dumb or gross or shitty, and someone's like, well, that's the norm, it makes money, I'm like, I don't give a fuck. That doesn't make it the correct course of action for appeasing your fans and communities. I know that capitalism pushes for short-term profits, but your long-term profits are compounded and grown by having communities that you grow and foster, like those of South America, for example. And I'm going to mention that now, is that I am speaking exclusively about how being a European, although my country tried to fucking vote out of the Europe, don't get me started on Brexit, being a European, I care more about the lack of European events than, care is a strong word. I am more focused on that. I'm also aware there's a complete absence of a Japanese or South American or any form of Asian, not just Japan, but that's the one where we used to have them, right? No Asian Pro Tour / Magiccon, no South American one either. This game used to have, as part of the professional game, a mantra, a slogan of play the game, see the world. Because pros weren't paid particularly well, it was very hard to make money as a professional Magic player. But one of the benefits of it was at least you get to see Honolulu or parts of Japan when they played Pro Tours there. You get to go and see the world through the game you love. However, at present time, if nothing changes, it's play the game, see North American convention centers. So my initial reaction when I saw there was no European one was just asking, what's up with that? A, it's weird, and B, why is there so little info? Why is there this weird little tidbit in the tweets and the emails they're sending out? The tweet they put out said this: "We can't wait to gather with you all there and in Europe in the future." Is that future 6 months from now? Or is that future 12 to 18 months from now, wizards? People like myself want to know. And the reason we want to know is to schedule the use of fucking money that we earn and our time that is valuable. I am lucky enough that going to Vegas, for example, is something I can do with the collaboration of sponsors or as a part of my job. It is there to network, liaise, and create content with other creators in the space. The average Magic fan can't do that, so it becomes even more of a massive commitment to go to Vegas or Chicago by traveling across the Atlantic Ocean. It's going to be a real shit if you make all those plans and book some of that stuff and they just announce one in bloody Slough or Birmingham after you've made the booking. That is wild. They shouldn't be doing that. We need to know now. So we reached out to Wizards for comment. I do talk to certain people at Wizards on the regular or semi-regular for activations with sponsorships, for example, collaborations or promotion of stuff, and sometimes just ask them, what's going on with this, try and get a better understanding of what's happening, and sometimes they can't comment on. In this case, we got an official comment from Blake Rasmussen. He said, "We're also looking forward to getting back to Europe with future Magiccons. While we are traveling around the US this year, we hope to have news about future European Magiccons soon. In the meantime, we are really excited to have 2 Spotlight Series in Europe, first of which is taking place on March 15th to 16th in Utrecht, the Netherlands, with the second being announced as soon as the details are finalized." During the editing of this video, Blake actually responded to my email where I actually told him one of my major criticisms. What's coming up in the video is that I talk about how if you can't announce something for Europe, which is what this sounds like, I'll unpack that more as the video goes on, but if you can't announce something for Europe, why announce the rest of it and make us feel left out? It's not a good public relations move, essentially. He did respond with a link via email that I'm not going to put completely on screen, but he does point out that actually there is a reason for announcing America ahead of anything else that is currently up in the air. Again, I'm pulling that as conjecture. I'm suggesting in this video that it sounds like something in Europe is coming, they just haven't confirmed it, right? But his point is that once they announce the American dates, they can start going to outside vendors, staff, judges, and start putting out the information without it being a big leak or a hush-hush project. And that's quite reasonable. He does mention travel costs for consumers too, and people are able to plan time off work and similar. I think in some ways that's a frustration because I'm not sure how many American events I want to go to, but perhaps I'm unique in that sense. So to be fair to him, later in this video I'm a little bit like, I don't really know why they do this. That's a fair reason to help with staffing and things. And he isn't saying this, but I'm reading it between the lines. This absolutely feels like we're getting something in Europe later in the year, right? But I'll let the rest of the video play out. And at the very end, when I say I'm a bit confused by this bit here kind of covers that. but I didn't want to really chop the video up because I was on a tight deadline to get this out, pick up my daughter, and take my wife out for her birthday. So, yeah, sorry I didn't edit the very, very end of this video. It does clarify one thing for me, which is what I thought going into this. The language on the emails, the language on the tweets, and then that official line from Blake with no further information, unfortunately. It does suggest that it's going to be a thing that we will get a European Magiccon. That's my feeling and vibe. It seems to me that perhaps contracts are all over the place or struggling to be completed in time to fit their announcement schedule. Like Blake said, there's 2 Spotlight series in Europe this year. I'll talk more about them in just a second. One of which we know about where it is and who's holding it. The other one, we know who's holding it, but we don't know where it is. So I'm assuming that's kind of up in the air while contracts aren't signed. To clarify what Spotlight series is, it's in theory, we haven't had one yet, so we can't really see what it is. But I did a video on it that no one fucking watched because no one seemed to care. But it feels like the return of old GPs, of old Grand Prix scale events. In the current Magic calendar, there are Command Fests. Command Fests are much, much smaller affair than Magiccon. The UK ones, the English ones are held by Axion now, and they're still wonderful events. There's still a load of people in a room, there's vendors, there's artists, there's creators like myself doing meet and greets, and there's a lot of Magic being played from not just Commander, but there'll be drafts and sealed and all sorts of stuff too. I met up with patrons at the last one in London, which was put on by Axion. Axion are a wonderful tournament organizer, and I met up with patrons and we drafted Mystery Booster 2 for the first time. Shout out to Pastor on my Discord, who got a box early due to it being shipped to his American address. I say early. Earlier than Europeans. Europeans still don't have Mystery Booster 2. It's just starting to show up now if you believe the posts on Reddit. So you've got like Command Fest, which is a fraction of what a Magiccon really is. The in-between, I guess, is going to be this Spotlight series in theory, like the old GPs, with a large-scale main event with a huge cash prize and some qualifications for larger stuff. And on top of that, there should be side events and vendors and all sorts of extra goodies to make it more of a thing in your calendar beyond just walking up to play the main event. In the latter life cycle of the Grand Prix, which became Magic Fests, not Magic Cons, under Channel Fireball's guidance, you know, towards the end of the before time, before the pandemic hit and just fucked everything. During the end of that life cycle, I, for the most part, stopped entering main events for limited or standard or whatever. I played them when they were like modern or legacy. I played the Modern Team Trios event with Dennis and Wedge from the Mana Source, and I played the legacy one that was in Prague. I did play some main event. On the whole, I rocked up to play side events, to meet people, friends, old friends, viewers of the channel, play in drafts, play in the modern and legacy side events, and just be involved with all sorts of bits of extra Magic at a place filled with other people wanting to play Magic, and it was wonderful. So, to Blake's credit and Wizards' credit, there are things happening in Europe. The Spotlight series does scratch that itch a little bit, but it's not the Magiccon. It's not going to be the size and scale of those things. I think more Magic players need to see this stuff. I think they're that good. And on top of all of that, the other element is that the Pro Tour should really take place across the globe. That's a strong feeling I've got. I feel like pros should get to go to other countries on the dime of Wizards of the Coast for their flight reimbursements and see the world, instead of seeing like the venues that I assume Wizards are getting for a bit cheaper. Another point that people made is that all of the dates are a bit weird. Chicago in February is very cold. Vegas in June is very hot. And I think Atlanta in September is also a bad weather spot, like hurricane season perhaps. If the people moaning on the social media accounts are to be believed. I don't know anything about Atlanta. I'm not going to look it up. But the point is that these seem to be in periods that would not be in high demand for their areas, suggesting they've got better deals on having repeat returns to cities they've already been to in off-peak seasons. That sounds like a cost-cutting exercise to me. And that might be also part of the issues around Europe as well. It's why we're probably never going to see a Magiccon London in its current iteration, because London's a very expensive city to do things in. It makes more sense for them to do Barcelona's and Madrid's and similar. Look, I would love it to be London. I'd love to have one in the UK. Fuck it, Wizards. Look, Slough, Southampton, Swindon. Fuck it, stick it in Salisbury, that's really close to me. Of course, those places are bad travel hubs, and people flying into the country from the rest of Europe would probably hate to have to get out of London, where they'd fly into, to travel to fucking Slough. Southampton does have an airport though. Honestly, Magiccon Southampton. It's not a great city. It's got a good burrito bar down London Road though. I'll give it that. So there's probably some cost cutting happening there, and that might be why the contract's all up in the air, because they haven't kind of secured what they need. Again, that's just me reading between the lines of what we got back from Blake and what we've seen with the it's coming but we don't know when kind of thing. The other side of it could be that I'm really off base here, and that both the statement from Blake that he gave back to me and the stuff on Twitter and on the emails that they sent out suggests that we will be returning to Europe for Magiccon, but not this year. It might mean we have to wait until 2026. Ugh. However, if you look at the calendar, it's February, June, September, and then you've got October, November, December. There feels like there should be something in that last quarter, right? I feel that's going to be the European one. Not ideal, because a lot of cities are not very nice in the cold. They're never going to do Berlin, because you can't do cash prizes of the Pro Tour associated with it, because Germany has weird rules. But God, cities like Berlin or London can be miserable in the winter. The reason I wanted to talk about this and why I reached out for comment and why this is a drum that I want to bang is that Magic is more than just North America. There is so many of us in other parts of the world. And I can only really speak loudly for Europe because that's where I am, for the UK and the rest of Europe too. But beyond that, for South America, for Asia, for other parts of the world that don't fit into those categories. I know someone's going to, I guess people are going to argue that Australia, what about Australia? I say that's a fair argument to be honest. What about Australia? All these places have vibrant Magic the Gathering communities and fan bases. And for people who talk about the economic sense of it and what makes sense from a money perspective, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these places have had large-scale events with very strong attendance that made those events profitable. Especially coming back to Europe, the one I know more, Barcelona and Amsterdam were massive. We've had legacy Grand Prix prior to the pandemic that had huge attendance, massive, because when you put them on, sparingly, once a year, or in Legacy's case, once every other year or whatever, people will flock to it. Because people want to play these formats. People want to meet and play Magic the Gathering. Embrace that heritage, embrace that culture, embrace the global fucking phenomenon that is Magic by taking it out of North America. Please, Wizards, please give us Magiccon Southampton or something else in Europe towards the end of the year. And I'll end on this last point as well. It's for accessibility and cost. Like, traveling to another country to go to a Magiccon anyway, like Barcelona or Amsterdam, I do understand is not accessible to everyone. Like, ideally, I'd love to see way more Magiccons spread out across the planet to make it easier for people to get to. Absolutely, I get that. But at the very least, putting them, like, continental means that people can get to them without having to take transatlantic or, intercontinental flights, which are 3 or 4 times as expensive. It's already an absolute luxury to go to one of these things. I completely understand that. But that luxury, that magnitude is multiplied 4-fold when you put them all in North America for the rest of the fucking planet. Anyway, I just want to talk to you a little bit. I'm really glad Wizards came back to me on that. The answer gave me a glimmer of hope, but I don't know if I'm just being given a, here's an answer, please go away. I don't think so. I think it's a reasonable response to tell us that, it's coming. #soon TM. I guess on that note is that if you were waiting for confirmations for the second Spotlight Series, for example, or for the final Magiccon in Europe, if there is going to be one for, contractual reasons, I would have suggested from my PR perspective, here's some advice, maybe put it all together as an announcement. It's strange to run the announcement out so much earlier, with that then upsetting and frustrating a load of the communities that aren't getting access to the thing you're announcing. Maybe there's something behind the scenes that I just don't understand as to why they had to announce it there and then, but why not wait another 3-4 weeks to try and finalize the contracts for the European one? And that's going to take longer than that. Why would contract negotiations take longer than 3 to 4 weeks on top of the time they've already had alongside the rest of the contract? Maybe they were started later. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out here. I don't really get it. I don't understand it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let me know if you are desperate for a Magiccon in Europe again, whether you enjoyed Barcelona or Amsterdam, whether you were sad that you missed out on them previously. And if you are in a region that isn't, the North American continent or Europe, let me know in the comment section below as well. I do like to know, what part of my viewership is from where and how they feel about the way Wizards treats them. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. I hope that video was at least mildly insightful or useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta for now.